Good morning, everyone. We are honored to host a session at Japan Scicom Forum 2023. Thank you for joining us to hear the panel entitled The Many Worlds of Science Communicators. So I'm very sorry to read it wrong. The Many Worlds of Science Communications presented by OIST. The importance of science communicators has long been recognized as science is done for the benefit of society and must be developed with the understanding and support of society. The reason why communicators are necessary is that professional communicators can convey information more effectively and efficiently, mediating between science and the public. On the other hand, understanding of the work is not as widespread, and it can be said that professionals themselves do not have a complete picture of the people, the organizations, the skills, and the work. In this discussion, the speakers will share their own career paths, challenges, opportunities, and advice for those passionate about science communications. Guiding our discussion is our esteemed moderator, Heather Young, the Vice President of Communications at OIST. Please join me in extending warm welcome to our distinguished panelists and moderator. Heather, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. While I'm doing the intros of our special guests, yes, that's what I was going to say, thank you. Please make yourselves at home in our living room. Have a seat. Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Did everyone sleep after your phone went off? Yes, you did. Okay, excellent. Welcome. Great. Chibuama Ilechukwu is a pharmacist and has a master's degree in pharmacognosy. Armed with over a decade of experience in clinical work, community practice, and research, she founded Hypertension Africa, which is a leading health coaching company that leverages lifestyle-based medicine and technology to help patients achieve and maintain normal blood pressure levels. She has impacted hundreds of lives across Nigeria and the rest of Africa. She is an author, a speaker. She has over 8,000 followers on social media, which she uses to communicate scientific research and findings to the layperson in an effort to reduce high blood pressure, which is the #1 risk factor globally. Next, we have Charmaine Caparas. She brings a wealth of experience in science and development communications. She has honed her skills in crafting communication strategies and tactics that empower multi-stakeholder initiatives, nurturing capacity building and institutional strengthening while emphasizing the importance of science and development. She is currently the communications manager for the Stockholm Environment Institute Asia Center, where she leads efforts in science to policy communication in the region and beyond. Previously, Charmaine led global communications at the World Vegetable Center and has worked for various organizations, including the Asian Development Bank, UNDP, and International Organization for Migration. Next, we have Naoki Namba. He has almost 20 years' experience in domestic and international public relations, media relations, science communications, patient relations, and crisis communications. After acquiring his master's degree in life sciences at Todai, he started a career in medical publishing. From there, he went on to Riken, where he was a science communicator in the Center for Developmental Biology. For the last 8 years, he has been at Hokkaido University, where he is the director for the Public Relations and Communications Division. He is interested in sharing scientific insights, conducting strategic PR, and steering crisis communication. Please welcome them. Thank you. Excellent. So I have the privilege of speaking to each of our guests today. We are going to do one by one to get to know them a little bit, and then we'll move into a roundtable. I do have my phone here so that I can keep a little bit of an eye on the time, as any good moderator does. So we are going to start with Chibuama. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with the science, because that's your background. Can you, when we spoke earlier, can you talk to me about how you saw science and then where the opportunity is to share it. So you were talking to me about how science makes the findings, but then what?
Thank you very much. So the link between science and the layman. So I'm a pharmacist to start with, and my own journey started with a personal experience. I don't know why we all got into science, but for me, I was a pharmacist. And then at the time, my dad developed arthritis just from aging, and it would affect his knees and then get to affect his lower back. And he kept going to the hospital looking for cure, but then there is no cure for arthritis. It only got worse. And the turning point for us was when his doctors told him he needed to get surgery, but then the surgery would be a 50-50 chance of actually helping him. So it looks like that's the end of the road. And we now had to start looking for something else to help him, since even the surgery wouldn't help. And that led to my master's degree research. On the day we asked what I would research in, I said, let me find something to help my dad. And my master's is actually in looking through Southwest Nigerian plants that could help in the control or management of arthritis, pain, and degeneration. Now, the story is interesting because it started as arthritis, but with the pain and high cholesterol, he developed hypertension. So he had different diseases he was dealing with. So it's like, let me go back to science to find what I could do for him. Now, the good news is, several years down the line, with a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, we were able to manage his condition so well that right now he's not on any pain medications, he's not on anything for high blood pressure. Like, his results, he's actually reversed everything, and he's been fine. So the link is, there is something happening in the lab where finding out all these things, but how does it translate into better life for the person who's struggling with the disease? So if there's a way to take that knowledge and give it to them in actionable steps. So for me, that was how I got into science communication the way I do it now, because now I started sharing on social media. And then I got people saying, oh, this thing you shared helped me. Oh, this thing you shared, oh, my blood pressure is better now, you know. And then I realized that high blood pressure was a big problem, or is still a big problem. So there was a gap. Yeah. How come it's so bad still, even with all the research going on in that area? And so it's like, my experience got me to seeing that gap and, you know, trying to fill it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I was going to ask how your dad's doing today, but you answered that, so I'm glad he's well. So you saw an amazing opportunity. You ran towards it. Both, I think, it sounds like personally, because you were motivated to share what you had learned, and it sounds like in helping others. Then what was the first step? Okay, you know social media. We know social media is a powerful vehicle. I mean, how did you start, and then how did you know what was working? How did you know what was resonating? How did you start down that path? I mean, okay, you make an account. I mean, then what?
Yes, so it's in doing that you find what works. When I started sharing on social media, it wasn't because of Hypertension Africa.
Okay.
It was just, oh, okay, I actually participated in a challenge, you know, something they just said, go live. Mm-hmm. That was back in 2017 when many people were not going live. Yeah. In fact, it was a nervous thing for me to just push the button and start speaking to a phone. But it was just something like, okay, just share anything that could help your audience. And then I just shared. And then the feedback was, wow, thank you, thank you. You know, so it's just in doing, you find what resonates with people. But then also, because of my research background, I then kept looking like, okay, is there a way to take people from point A to point B, beyond just sharing tips? Like, oh, rest better, sleep 6 hours. You know, American Association of Psychology says sleep 6 to 8 hours. But how is it practical to you? So do you set an alarm for sleep time? Hey, go to bed. Sleep. You know, so it's research like, okay, share this, do this, come back, tell me how that works. Do this, tell us how that works. So it's, what we're doing is really scientific, because now we're monitoring your progress. So it's not just a bunch of tips. It's now a bunch of do this. After 1 week, tell us your results. Then do this again. Now let's introduce this. How does your body react to this? You know, how do you respond to this? So it's really very scientific because we're monitoring, you know, just like what you do in the labs, but now we're doing it with humans in real time. And we're taking research that is already present, like, you know, people have already studied these things, the role of exercise, the role of foods, the role of, you know, different aspects. Someone asked me yesterday, how about meditation? Yeah, it all has a role to play. So we're actually fine-tuning the process. So it's no longer just a bunch of things my dad did. It took him 2 years to get better. But today, we've refined the process so much that it takes our clients 3 months or less to get amazing results. We have people who have had high BP struggles for 10 years on medications, maybe 3 medications. They drop the 3 medications in 3 months, something they've taken for 10 years. And then they go back to their doctors, and the doctors are saying, how are you getting these results? How is this possible? Okay, come back in a month. I want to see your results again. And then they come back in a month, and the results are still good. 120/80, 110/70. They check their cholesterol readings. It's dropped without statins, you know. So it's pure science, but this is the way we're applying it in taking it from the lab, taking all that research everyone is, you know, finding out, and making it actionable into like getting real results for people.
Yeah.
And you know, improving lives, saving lives, really.
Yeah, that translation. I love that you're playing the role of the scientist and the science communicator in the same, because that's very unique. Most of us don't have that that privilege. Tell us a little bit. Can you tell us about how your app and your social media is interactive? So it's not just, and we talk a lot about whether we're just amplifying or how are we listening. I mean, you know, we want social media to be two-way, and I hear that whether it's through your technology or online, how do you help that circle? So you're not just pushing out information, I don't think.
Yes, so there are 2 levels to it. There is the first level of pushing out information. That's for awareness, for education. So that's what we do with basic social media, like doing live videos, YouTube, you know, it's just regular information, Hypertension Africa TV. So we're just educating. Because if you're going to make sustainable change, it's lifestyle medicine, really. So first of all, you need to hear it, you know, and then see, oh, there is something here. And then the next step would be, okay, now I see that there is something here. How do I apply it to myself? So we have like webinars that you can register for. Then, you know, listen to that. So it gives you more context. You're like, okay, I think I want to use this. Then you can now, so the next step is now the interactive part where you feel like, I want to now use this. So we can now say, okay, now join a coaching program. So it now becomes coaching. When it becomes coaching, it's no longer just awareness. It's no longer just education. Now it's coaching. You're, at that point, we're leveraging technology like we give you the information. So either through videos hosted, we already have like portals hosting the videos. You watch, you listen. Now, then you have a step to take. After a week, we then, just like you have like these forms, you know, you send back your results to us so we can see your progress. Then we have meetings as well, like Zoom calls, Zoom sessions. So that becomes two-way, because now you're reporting back to us, we're tracking with you, we're now giving you feedback on what to do next based on your progress. And remember, everyone comes in with their own goals. Some people want to shed weight, some people are obese, some people want to cholesterol, so it's different aspects. So that personalization happens because of the two-way thing. Yeah, so.
You're exactly describing, I mean, knowing your audience, right? Speaking to your audience, but more than just the demographics, the psychographics, and then the, well, even deeper, too, which is such a reminder. We all know your audience, but this is knowing your audience, I think, on a whole new level. Okay, why don't I move along? I can't wait to come back and ask you about challenges and opportunities in your work and even globally, too. By the way, folks have probably imagined that from just the intros that our communicators up here today come from really different backgrounds and have come to science communication in really different ways, which is why we asked them to participate in order to give. Oh, really? Okay. really to give them an opportunity to share all the different ways into our profession, all the different ways we can be successful in our profession. So, Charmaine, let's move to you. You had a very different start. Can you talk about your journey into development and then from development on, please?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Hi, everyone. I'm Charmaine. I didn't start working in science communication right away. I did study it back in university, and then, but I started working in PR and marketing. I moved from for-profit to non-profit. So eventually, I got into development work. My first science communication job was on climate migration. At that time, I didn't really understand it that well. But you learn as you go, and you sort of get into it more. And more than 10 years after, I'm here and I'm talking about Scicom. So it's great. It wasn't straightforward, but I got here eventually. So that's great.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of those lessons early on? Because some of us may relate to some of those, whether it's, oh my goodness, there can be feelings of overwhelm, where you're feeling overwhelming with all the science. Can you talk about that experience early on? Maybe some of us can relate.
Yeah, that's true actually. In the beginning, when you're young and you don't know what's happening, you just needed to get a job, something to pay the bills. So you take it, and it seemed really interesting. It was on a topic that I felt really interested in and very passionate about. So climate change, environment was something I really liked, and I thought at that time, you know what? I'll just do it. Let me just learn more and see how we go. And then eventually I got into it more and more. I got more projects. So I kind of understood the subject matter better. And it wasn't just, so I did climate migration, and then I started working on energy transitions. So that's a different kind of science. It's suddenly we're talking about emissions. We're talking about if power plant, if you move it to a renewable. So there's so many technical things to learn. And as a science communicator, you have to learn a certain percentage of it so that you can write about it and so you can talk about it. And for me, you just really have to be patient and really work with the scientists. So those who are working on that subject matter more deeply. And so I think, yeah, it helped me a lot, the collaboration and the patience, I think. But yeah, I can imagine it is overwhelming.
Yes, I love that you mentioned passion, and that was something we heard from Ali Bailey yesterday. When we want our scientists, we want to grab their passion as well. Now, when we had spoken earlier, you talked to me about the importance of creativity and story in what you do. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Oh yeah, I love being creative with science communication. And so Aileen's fast talk yesterday I really enjoyed it because I do believe that, we have to go beyond what we know in terms of Scicom. It can't always be that, we write in scientific publications, we write for science websites, but we also need to make it make sense to people and kind of tell that story of science. And that's not always an easy thing because when you tell that story, you want to make sure that you're staying true to what you want to say without diluting the facts, without diluting the findings, but also make it interesting for people, for your target audience. But yeah, I am so into creative writing and using alternative means of communication on social media like TikTok, Discord, Twitch. So there are so many platforms, and for me, that's very exciting as a communicator because you see how the field is expanding and how there are new things coming up And so it kind of challenges us even more, and we're not just doing what we usually do.
Excellent, thank you. I hope folks are hearing that on our, up at the stage here, I mean, we have some scientists, some non-scientists, and just to point out that there isn't one way, right? There isn't one way to get here. You can see how our scientists give us a direct passion and input into the communications, but also our non-scientists, and I speak personally too, I think are able to push the boundaries around plain language. Push boundaries, plain language, that's funny in the same sentence. But to push so that we can all understand, people can understand. Excellent. Now, you talked to me a little bit about misinformation. Yeah, one more, sorry, you're not off the hook quite yet. We talked a little bit about misinformation, which we could do a whole panel on as well. But talk to me how you think about it, and especially in your work when it comes to climate.
Yes, there is a lot. There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And one thing, at least for the environment and climate change side, there is this climate scientist that I've been reading about. And in her book, she was saying that, you know, people don't really care about the numbers anymore. If you're talking to them, like that's so frustrating for a communications person, because that's how we're trained to kind of give the message. You show the statistics and you say, hey, this is what's going to happen. But interestingly, she said that, you know, in order for you to really get ahead or even manage that misinformation, disinformation, your work as a science communicator is to really connect with the audience and find common ground and start from there. So we can it's kind of difficult to do when you're talking like in a mass scale, if you're putting out messages in a more general audience. But I think there is a way to do it. You kind of have to look into the specific people that you're trying to reach and think of what motivates them. What could be the connection between you and this person? Recently in Thailand, so I met the top marine scientist in Thailand. So one of the famous beaches in Thailand, it's called Maya Bay. It was shut down for a couple of years, which was really something not that usually the government wouldn't do, because they get a lot of income from tourism. But the marine scientist said, okay, this is not working. The ecosystem is completely ruined. If we continue doing this, you actually won't get income from tourism. So then he thought, okay, what would be the motivation of these policy people? It's actually money and income. So he started from there, and he said, he showed the projections of, okay, if we shut down this island for a couple of years, we rehabilitate, this is how it's going to look like after a couple of years. And so the government was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Let's do it. So they shut it down, and now it's back open, completely rehabilitated, and now they're trying to do a more sustainable kind of tourism to protect the environment. So, yeah. So I think it's that. It's finding people's motivation and, like, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we can see some themes developing already. Goodness, it's hard to impact long-term thinking in our world today, especially the political world. But that's a great segue, because I think Japan is known for its long-term thinking, even in areas where it's really difficult, like the political sphere. So on that note, let us move to Naoki. Can you talk to us about your motivation? I know you connect a lot to insights. Can you tell us your motivation in the science communication world?
I see. So I'm Naoki from Hokkaido University. Nice to meet you all. So it's been already almost 20 years since I'm in communication, science communication, and so I first got interested in what is now called science communication when I was in college. So it was like 20 years ago. Since I liked the science, because it changes how I see the world. It changes how I see the nature or how I see myself. So it's very inspiring knowing about science. So I want to share those insights from science with other people, like with the public. I think that was my first motivation. But at the same time, I was also interested in being a scientist as well. But I found that I didn't have to make discoveries by myself. I just want to know more about science and share it with other people. So I think that's why I chose to be what is now called science communicator.
Let me back up just a little bit. You went from science publishing, which is interesting. I come from a publishing background too, which of course is a form of science communication, but not quite what we're here to talk about. What was that? I was going to say leap, because I think it sometimes feels like a big leap and not. But can you tell us how you were motivated? Yeah, what that journey was like.
So when I graduated from the graduate school, I got my master's degree in life sciences. That was, at that time, there was no science communication position in Japan. Maybe there was some, but science communication is quite new in Japan, so there weren't enough positions, and I couldn't find anywhere I can do science communication. So I thought that medical publisher is close to what I wanted to do. So I started working with a medical publisher, but I found that it is difficult to be a writer there. I want to write stories by myself, but it's all editing job. So yeah, then I found that the RIKEN, the Japanese research institution, started hiring science communicator. Then they called science coordinator, but I found that that's what I wanted to do, so I moved to RIKEN, yes.
We can see creativity as a theme coming out there too. Now, I know when we spoke, you were passionate about how science communication can help, universities can help academia. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I see. So I think I am a science communicator, but at the same time, I'm a PR, public relations practitioner. So thinking about that, I think I need to use the power of science communication to support the university to achieve its goals. So, for example, it could be student recruitment, or it could be promoting collaboration with companies, but just not sharing the science stories with the public. We can have other organizational goals that science communication can be useful for. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I think, bringing more people into the Scicom family.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's go into a bit more discussion with all of us. I have a number of questions prepped, but at one point we will be going to our audience. So if folks have questions, don't be shy. The opportunity will come your way in about 10 or 15 minutes or so. When we look at our work, there are, loads of challenges and loads of opportunities. Why don't we start with the opportunities first, actually? And we've touched on them, so let's dig into that. What are the big opportunities in front of us, maybe whether it's today or even near term, long term? What are the opportunities for our profession? And just to open it up as broadly as you would like to answer, opportunities as us as communicators to be as effective as possible, or our profession? Okay, let's go sort of backwards now. Why don't we start with you, Naoki?
Opportunities. It's a broad theme, but I think like this meeting itself is a great opportunity for science communicators.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Since I think I like that there is a network of science communicators here in Japan. I think that's quite unusual looking at other areas of roles in the universities. So people just focus on their own university or research institution. But for some reason, Probably because of the kind of instability of the science communicator jobs or positions, science communicators in Japan tend to get together and exchange information. So it is, I think, for me to develop myself or my career, this is a great opportunity to network with people.
Absolutely. I was just thinking of the word network, which sometimes makes people nervous, like it's, it can feel awkward, but networking is about just connecting with each other, meeting new people. So if I could just use that opportunity, please, when you go home, connect back to folks you've met, connect back to us, because we can all advance our work together. Excellent. Charmaine.
Hello. Okay, for me, one big opportunity now is that there are so many new tools to help us to communicate better. And I see it could be AI, it could be new tools to create videos much faster, to help you write. All of these things that we didn't have really before when we were starting out in our careers. Now it's widely available, and it kind of takes your communication to a higher level. Now you can visualize data, not quickly, but at a shorter amount of time, and you can make stories out of that. You can create tweets out of that. And now the messaging is more contextualized. It gives you so much more material to give a better context or to give the full story to your audience. So I think that's great, and I think it's going to continue growing, and there will be more new things that we will see in the future. Yeah.
Sure, we could do, I think, a whole panel on a number of just those topics. Thank you. Chibuama.
Thank you. So I would kind of layer on what she said a bit, using tools, but on a more personal level. So because we all come from different backgrounds and our interests are all different, I would say on a personal level, so if you feel like your own research, just like I think it was mentioned yesterday, could have a direct impact on the public, so the opportunity is just share, and you never really know how much impact it could have. So, but in sharing, you might find what resonates more with people, and then it might even determine the area that you now go with your research. Like, okay, people need more of this, so I would research more in this area. So I would say on a personal level, if you love to communicate, if you love to share, if you love to maybe do videos, if you love to write, so you could own a blog and make science easy, maybe physics easy, neuroscience easy. You could open a blog if you like to write. Yesterday we did podcasting. You love to speak, so you could start a podcast that makes science really easy. Just keep sharing, make it relatable to people, make people interested enough in science to say, okay, I love more of this. At some point you will start to get user feedback, and that can give you more direction in science communication to the public.
Well, that sounds like a bit of a call to action, a little homework from today. Excellent. Let's move more to challenges. There's certainly challenges in our business, in our industry, and I think that's an important topic here because often challenges can be solved together. Charmaine, can we start with you?
Well, one challenge obviously is, at least in my work, when we have projects, community projects, we have projects on environment and climate change, but all of these things only allocate a small amount for communication. It's kind of like a by the way and end of the project thing. Let's make a flyer, let's write a few blogs, instead of really integrating communication in the whole project, like implementation in the whole theory of change. Usually we do put that, but in practice it's not really like that. It's challenging because there are so many ways to tell the story. There's so many. We could do so much more, but then we don't have the budget, or we don't have the time to actually do it, because it comes in November that you have you have to put that infographic in December. So you don't really have a lot of wiggle room as a communicator. So that's one thing that I'm very keen in resolving, at least in my own line of work. So yeah, I will say resources.
Yes, I saw some nods and I, I heard some gasps of agreement. And it is the reality, I think especially now, things have been tightened down across many boards. And I think if I could just link that back to our keynote from Ali Bailey yesterday, that is part of the reason that we need to be fighting for that bigger message, that no, not everyone can do communications, even if they have a bank account. But really fighting for the profession and the value, which also means we need to be sharing what the value is. So once we've done a project, how can we loop back and show the impact of our work? Let's keep going. So challenges, Chiboma, what keeps you up at night? Other than 3 kids.
Yeah, right. Well, challenges. So maybe I'll just talk specifically to health, like health education that we do. The challenge there would be acceptability in terms of, could this really make a difference as much as you say it can make? Also, there is a lot of, especially on the internet, there's so much already on the internet. There's a lot of noise on the internet. There is a tendency for us to look up anything we find on the internet is truth. Forgetting that a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old can actually just be the one behind that blog you're reading. But because you read it off online, you think this is the truth or this is the fact. So the challenge is helping people sift through what is actually the real science and what is just opinion and what is the real thing. And it's also like a call to action to us scientists to put out, like, if you don't tell the story, someone else will. And that other person who's just saying something, who's maybe pushing a narrative, maybe pushing a product, for instance, like in Africa or where I come from, specifically Nigeria, there are a lot of products. Like a lot of products. Everyone is just trying, there are a lot of supplements, even beyond Africa, like so many supplements. So when you tell someone that lifestyle medicine can help them, they say, but could you just give me anything in a bottle for me to take, like any supplement? So, the challenge is getting people to actually see this is the science, like this works because of the science behind it, versus this is just, I just want to push this product out there. So the challenge is helping people to see what is the real thing versus what is unreal or what won't really help them in the long run, especially as regards health. So if someone takes a product that won't help them long term, or these supplements would give you some form of respite, some form of relief, but long term, when you discontinue, the effect wanes. So, if someone now relies on just this supplement and thinks, oh, they're now okay, and do nothing, and they stop to check their blood pressure, for instance, it could be going high and they wouldn't even know. So we've had a case where we have like an outreach, and then we just keep hammering, check your BP, check your blood pressure, and then this person goes to check. They feel normal, but they go to check and they see 200 over 120 millimeters of mercury. Now, to put that in context, everyone's blood pressure should be below 140 over 90. And then you're safe. You're never going to have a stroke or anything. But then this person is having 200 over 120. What if we didn't have that outreach? What if? But then they've taken a supplement and they thought that would be everything that they ever needed, not knowing that there is still more. So the challenge is just putting it out there and making a case for the science.
Yeah, I hear you touch on misinformation and then also the importance of persuasive communications.
Yes, absolutely.
Challenges.
Yes, I think there are many challenges, but maybe if I could talk about two challenges. So I think one is to how you develop your own career as science communicator until your retirement. So as I said, science communication was introduced to Japan around 20 years ago, so it's still new. So people started science communication when they are in their 20s or 30s. So I think there's just a few people who actually retired as a science communicator in Japan. You don't have to retire. It might be a lifelong journey, but how you develop your long-term career as a science communicator is one challenge, I think. And the other one is how we can make science communication activities measurable, because when you communicate science with your target audience, you have some goals, right? So you want to know whether you are achieving the goal or how much you are achieving the goal. So, and getting the feedback. So that improves, to keep improving what you do. I think it is very important to make your activities measurable. And it is also important to convince other people. For example, I work in a university, so I need to convince other people that science communication is important for the university. So the second thing is to make it measurable.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that touches back on Charmaine talking about budgets. I think we have to fight numbers with numbers in some cases. Let's do a little push for your program, because I think Hokkaido has a science communication program. So I guess, can you tell us just a quick little bit about that, how it came about and what it looks like?
Yes, so again, it was around 20 years ago. The Japanese government started supporting those science communication programs at some universities in Japan, and Hokkaido University is one of them. So it's called CoSTEP. I forgot the full name, but it's a program to develop science communicators, but it's not a degree program, it's just 1 year program. And there have been many graduates from that program, and they actually have got jobs at universities, science centers, and research institutions as science communicators. So I think the CoSTEP at Hokkaido University is one of the successful examples of science communication education in Japan.
I think so. We have someone on our team who had the privilege of taking it. Excellent. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, or probably a little less. Oh, thank you, Merle. We have about 10 minutes left or so, probably a little bit less. So let me open the floor. Do we have any questions? Excellent.
So you mentioned that science communication is quite new in Japan, and that's interesting because I would have assumed, and I might be wrong, but I would have assumed that Japan has really good public perception of science, that there's trust in scientists, that it's seen as a good career. So that got me wondering, and this is a question to all of the panel, but in your respective countries, what do you feel like the state of public perception of science is? Where is there work to be done, and where do you think your country's strengths lie?
Oh, thank you. Why don't we start with Naoki from because you had mentioned the Japanese connection, so why don't we start there and move around?
So I think before 20 years ago,
A little closer.
yes, before 20 years ago, I think there are people who communicate science as a job. It might be scientists themselves, or it might be, for example, patent process also. But we didn't call them science communicators until recently. And the reason why there is public trust to science or to scientists in Japan, that's a difficult question. I don't know the answer. But what I can say is that since the public generally trust the scientists and research institution, there could be a backfire when you do something wrong as a scientist, and it can be a huge backfire.
Charmaine?
Well, in the Philippines, so I'm from the Philippines, but I have worked around the region, specifically maybe in Southeast Asia. So I can say something that, you know, science is still very important, but we kind of look at science in the context of development because the countries in this particular region, most of them are still developing. And so when we have new innovation in science, let's say in agriculture, so it would be in the context of what does it mean for the farmers? What does it mean for public health? What does it mean for this? So I guess for us, that's the context where we're coming from. And it's kind of different if you're doing science communication or science from a more developed global north country. And so, yeah, that's...
Thank you. Chibuama.
Thank you. So from Nigeria, for instance, I would say that there is room for a lot of improvement in science communication and all. I know that there are certain, even beyond universities, there are certain organizations that also have these publications that take work that scientists have done and publish it. I know the Conversation Africa. Interestingly, my husband here also published some bit of his work there, to get to people. There's a professor here, University of Uyo, who there is a department called Science Communication. Yeah, they're also putting out work, but of course there's room for a lot more science communication expansion.
Perhaps we can say that's a universal need. Excellent. Okay, 5 minutes. Yes, please.
When we're talking about AI, I want to know that what current science communicators are, doing, or you can say special value is added that cannot replace by AI in the future.
This is a little job preservation question. Yeah, very good. Would anyone like to start?
Let's start with the most simple AI, ChatGPT. When we're writing something, we want to make our lives easier. We put it in there. And so in the few times that I've tried using that to write something, because in the beginning, we tried it just to see what kind of results are we getting? Is it close enough to how we would write it? Or is it completely different? And so what we found is that it doesn't get the context. So your context is still very important. So for example, they could write about climate change, like getting information from random websites and all of that. But they won't be able to write what it meant for that community that you're supporting. They don't know that. So I don't know if eventually they will learn the context. Let's hope not, so we can still have our jobs. But I think that particular bit, like what you know and what you have learned, your years of experience learning that subject, I think for now at least, I don't think that can be replaced.
Yeah, the human connection. Does anyone want to add? Sure.
I think my answer is very simple. So anything that involves your emotion and body, I think. So if you just write a science story and share it on the internet, I think it can be done by the AI at some point. But anything that involves body, like this event, meet people in person, that cannot be replaced. So,
yeah, the humanity. Yes. Do you want to add? Good. Okay. It's okay. We have to wrap up. Last question over here, please.
My question is this. First of all, it comes as a surprise that whereas there is a high science communication, science culture, science and technology culture in Japan, I mean, we started hearing about Japan since we were kids, back in the 70s. Okay, but it's also shocking that the science communication culture didn't quite develop until maybe 20 years ago. So the question is, what could have been responsible for this? You have a huge communication infrastructure, yet you have a low science communication culture. So what could have been responsible for this? That's number one. Number two, whose responsibility is it to develop a culture of science communication in society? And then how can we challenge ourselves as individuals to improve a science communication culture in government, in the academia, in society, and in the communities? Because we live in a world where there's a high science and technology innovation culture, but you recognize that not so many people are knowledgeable about science. So how can we challenge ourselves to generate curiosity, generate more interest in science in the communities around the world? Thank you very much.
And didn't COVID show that more than anything? There were quite a few questions in there. I did jot them down as we went. We do have to wrap, so why don't we jump right to that last part, if I may. That's a beautiful wrap up, that idea of whose responsibility is it? And I don't think there's one answer, and I don't think we're alone in this. But whose responsibility is it, not just to promote science, but to help people see the real value so that we can make policy decisions, health decisions, education decisions? What do you think?
Well, by being here and asking ourselves this question automatically puts that responsibility on each and every one of us. Because we could just ask whose responsibility is it, and then we put it out, oh, it's their responsibility. It's someone else's, but I think it's like a pause and ponder kind of question. So everyone, it's a call to action too. Like, how can you improve science communication going forward? By being in this conference, seeing what we're doing, understanding the importance, we can now begin to think, when we leave here, how can we be better science communicators? That's what I think.
That's wonderful, and that's the part we can influence, too. Does anyone want to add? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
So I'm not saying that it's the government that is responsible for it, but historically speaking, in Japan, I think after the war, the Japanese government promoted science and technology as a way to make the country richer. So for the economy, basically. So I think it has never been a culture. The science has never been a culture in Japan so far, in my opinion. So it's also a science communicator's responsibility so far, have not been able to share the importance and maybe the fun of science with the public enough. So it's also, as I said, the science communication in Japan is still new. That's one reason, but it's also science communicator's job to do it.
Absolutely. Okay, quick lightning round. Answer can only be like one or two or three words. What excites you about the future? Chibuamo, what excites you about the future?
Will improve the quality of life.
Good. Charmaine, what excites you about the future?
How to tell our stories better.
Yeah, Kisan.
Nurture the science culture in Japan.
Thank you, thank you. I heard themes of public trust, of technology, storytelling, measurement, creativity, and to me, what just came through so many times is really the humanity of our work, which perhaps we don't always remember, but really it's about the humanity of what we do. Okay, let's practice what we preach for 1 second and find out how much of an impact we've had today. Our goal was to really share. We wanted people to gain an understanding, increase their understanding of science communication as a field, as opportunities, and excite people about our field. Okay, quick show of hands. Who learned a little or had a little inspiration today? Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.